6 o'clock, I'll call the Public Health and Safety meeting to order. Just to make sure the members are John, Marty, Dan, and Susan. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we've got 2 fireworks permits. The first, we'll take them separately. First one for after the DW game, opening on August 23rd. The permit information is in place. Anything from fire or public safety? I'm assuming they're set up on the
same company.
East
We've
end
worked with them before. Yep, we're good with everything they got set up there, and they would have to have the additional insurance for the school, I believe. But yeah, we're good with it.
Okay. Any other questions? As normal, I don't think it will happen, but if there's a burn ban, we'll have to make sure we review that.
I move to approve the fireworks permit for the Dakota Wesleyan game. My mouth is still watering from the chocolate bars.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by John. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Second item is fireworks permit for the Colonel Bowl on August 25th. And I'm assuming the same things apply, Lyndon? Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion and a second. Marty and Susan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned. Mayor?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right here. Would you join me in a spirit of prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings, for this beautiful August day, and thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for
the lot up to our driveway, and then the whole length of our lot on the west side. The trees provide the desired shelter for our home and the storage building, as well as limits the visibility from 256th Street. Five houses to the east of them. One thing that we talked about was including in our contract is a recommendation for anybody who rents out a spot to come down from 408th Avenue. Then they don't have to go in front of any of those houses out there.
So on your property, then it looks like these will be behind your house. Is that right? So
Yes.
it's kind of off the road.
Yep, it would be off the road. And then, like I said, those trees, once they're fully grown, they will provide a blockage from the road.
And your neighbors adjacent to it to the east, I think there's two of them there?
Yep.
Any problem with those two?
No, actually the three immediate neighbors next to us are all in approval with it. One of them is actually here tonight if you guys have any questions for him.
Then how about the one to the west of your place?
The one to the west was okay with it as well.
And they all got letters too.
They did get letters. One of them, the one in the back, kind of to the northeast of us, he actually sent in a letter of approval prior to the last meeting. And he would be the one that would be directly out in front of his house.
Did the county planning commission, they didn't have to hear this at
No,
all?
it's within the city's jurisdiction.
Okay.
And I happened to be on the planning commission. And when this came up, I believe it came up twice, is that, and there was no opposition except for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago to our last meeting. There was first lady and husband and wife came up and had opposition of that. It's the first that I heard of it, and I think Bob was on the same board too.
Correct.
All right, thank you for your consideration.
Well, I'm going to move approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that the drainage be routed to the north.
Yeah, we have a motion by Mrs. Charks.
I'll second, but I think is there other public comment?
Second by Mr. Rice. You have a comment, sir?
Yeah, I'm Darrell Semler. We live on 408th Street. I got more signatures that definitely do not want that big building in the backyard. That's an awful big building, 50 by 140, to be putting in somebody's backyard, so everybody can drive back and forth and see that. I know Mrs. Sullivan said that in time the trees will hide her building. I don't think that's a true statement. The trees right now are about knee deep or knee high. It'll take them 40 years to get big enough so you wouldn't see that building. I personally talked to all these people that I have on my list, and they are afraid of the outside storage. Like I said before, that's an awful big building, be putting in a lot that's 205 by 112. That only leaves 30 feet to the east and 30 feet to the west. It's got a little bit more room to the back and to the front of it. The neighbors that I have talked to said that they're afraid what's going to happen with the outside storage. You're going to see stuff, and I don't want to call it junk, but people are bringing the stuff to store, and then you can't cut around it with your lawnmowers. A little ways back beyond where the Sullivans live, there's already a neighbor that has stuff back there, and the weeds are already that high. And we don't want that to be a hindrance to anybody else that lives in that neighborhood.
Which house do you live in?
We live, it'll be 3 lots east of where the Sullivans live. We got that empty lot with the 2 acres. Yeah, that empty lot, yeah.
What size are your outbuildings?
Well, each lot is 212 by 410 for 2 acres.
You have extra buildings on your lot?
No, we don't. We tore all of our old buildings down to make it presentable to the neighbors. So we've currently took all the old buildings down, and now it looks really nice.
So you have a house there. What are the other buildings that are showing? Are those gone?
Yeah, we had them all tore down. Now we got just one big open 4-acre lot.
So you tore them down the last year?
Yep, just within probably 3 months ago. Now it all looks nice and clean. But like I said before, the neighbors are afraid of once you put a building that size in there and have the outside storage also, that it's going to be starting to get cluttered up slowly and surely. I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address us?
My name's Dave Doring. Could you pull that map up that shows where they're going to put that shed, please? That was a little bit ago. All right. The Jerry there is Jerry Euchre. He's the one that sent in the approval with the letter on it. I'm right below him. Right there, me and Joanne. Joanne and I live right there. We are right across the street from them. I talked to Ron Gergen about 20 minutes ago, no, 45 minutes ago. And he's okay with it too. And we're the ones that live right next to him. I mean, we don't see no problem because they say in the contract it's got to be kept clean outside and in. So I guess I don't know what else to say, but we're the 3 ones right next to them.
How do they keep their home now?
Good.
They're outside.
They're
Good.
fine.
Good neighbors.
I'll tell you, Dusty's out. I don't know that guy. He's dinking all the time. I mean, he's doing something. You know, right now he's over. Well, I shouldn't say it. He's in Afghanistan. He left here about 3 weeks ago. But he's always doing something here. They're mowing the lawn, putting trees in. Hell, they even moved trees because they had them in the wrong spot. But
They're good, respectable neighbors.
yeah, I have no problem with him. I guess I don't know what the big humble is, but that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. We have a motion to approve and a second by Mr. Rice. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 14, hearing for Darlene Beeler at 508 East 6th Avenue, tabled from last meeting. Darlene Beeler has applied for a side yard variance of 1 foot versus 3 foot as required to construct a detached garage. Legally described as listed on the agenda.
Again, that's if you want to refer back to the July 9th Planning Commission meetings, and you would see that there was a motion at that time to recommend approval, but that motion was lost. Like I said, there is some background information on there. The plans are there. And I believe the applicant is here. as so that I'll just let them speak to what's going on. So.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tyler Miller, and I'm the new owner of the property, and I'll be the contractor for the garage as well. I have an aerial view of the property I'd like to pass out for you guys to look at. We are applying for a variance, a side yard variance, to build a detached garage in the backyard with the overhang of the garage starting 1 foot from the neighboring property line to the west instead of the normal 3-foot setback. I know 2 feet may not seem like much, but with lot size and layout of the property, it does make a big difference. I think we can all agree on the importance of having a garage living in South Dakota. While at the same time trying to maintain and maximize the space for your kids to go outside and to play and enjoy themselves. And that's a hardship that I'm trying to overcome for our family. Also, one of the best features of the house and reason that we purchased it is that there is a sunroom in the backyard with 6 large windows. Without the variance, the garage will extend out and cover the majority of the backyard. And it basically renders the majority of the sunroom and the little grass area that's left of the backyard unusable for kids, forcing them to go out into the front yard, which is right along 6th Street to play. However, with the variance, it maximizes the use of the backyard and the grass area that's left, as well as the sunroom. And this maintains the property value and resale value as well instead of decreasing it. I have talked with our neighbors to the west. This is Josh Enders. They have no objection to the garage going up. And in fact, to my knowledge, the City Planning and Zoning Committee received 4 letters back that were sent out to neighbors about the garage, and they all approved it as well. Lastly, on the map that I handed out, the X is where I hope to build the garage, and as you can see, it's the best place and most efficient use of the lot. The neighbor, or Josh, to the west, it doesn't affect them, as their garage is on the west side of their property and they back into the street. And the neighbors to the east, there's already a garage there, as well as there's a telephone pole that would prohibit us from backing up or going in and out of our garage. So this is Josh Enders, and he wanted to voice his support for it.
I'm Josh Enders. I guess we don't have any problem with it being there, and really it'll give us more privacy in our backyard with that garage being there. And yeah, I guess we don't have any issues, and just want to make you guys aware.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler, do you want to talk just a little bit about the neighbors to the east, because it appears that their garage maybe is closer. It also maybe has a variance. Is that correct? Or if it doesn't, it was built without a variance, but it should have had one?
Yeah, to my knowledge, there is no variance. We just purchased the property. That garage, when we had our lot surveyed, the lot line to the east there was marked, and their garage, their overhang is 1 foot from ours. Their wall starts at 2 feet. And so if we were to try and build a garage on the east side, we'd have to push ours back further into our own lot. Yeah, there is no variance that I'm aware of. I'm not here to complain about them. I want to be a good neighbor. I'm okay with it. But it just, I guess, further supports the location of where I'm proposing to put ours.
They may have been built prior to any requirement for variance with that garage.
This is a very narrow lot, too.
Yes, it is.
50 foot.
So I'm just trying to maximize the space for kids to, that accident that happened a few months back where the guy was traveling down 6th Street going 80 miles an hour, that happened in our front yard. And so I really don't care to have our future kids out there playing. The backyard is fenced in, and it's a safer area for them.
I too have happened to be on the Planning Commission, and Jay Larson, the chairman, said this probably 3 months ago, and I think maybe 4, when you were there too, Bob, is that if we don't give any wiggle room to a 50-foot lot to have them build something and give them some variance to do this, there's no incentive to even buy these homes, because back then, 40, 50 years ago, or maybe, I don't know how old this home is.
1956.
So 65, 70 years, they didn't have the vision that the homes would be bigger. This is what the lot size was back then. So we don't do any of this. I know, to me, it's not a hardship, but it does make common sense that if the neighbor says yes, the neighbor next to you, you might tell them, move the building, but you want to be a good neighbor. So I have no problem doing this.
There was nobody that was opposed to it, was there?
No, there was not.
The one thing you got to remember is you're setting a precedence for other 50-foot lots here. And as a former member of the Planning Commission, once you start doing that, you can't pick and choose who you're going to give these to. So, you know, if you want to throw out all of what they do on planning and zoning, maybe you should consider that. But
And I don't,
when you buy a house like this, you know the setbacks and you know what you have for a lot. And he just purchased it recently, so I'm sympathetic with you. Don't get me wrong, but I understand where the Planning and Zoning Commission's coming from. Once you do this, you're going to open it for every 50-foot lot in the city.
Although, Bob, we have to give consideration there's no opposition from neighbors. I mean, if the next one that comes along says 3 neighbors.
Well, you can, but your ordinance also states in order to get a variance, you need a hardship. And, you know, maybe we need to change the language in the ordinance.
I'd love to see that happen. And quite frankly, Bob, in my opinion, I don't have a problem with going along with this for the 50-foot lots. And if the planning and zoning, if it hadn't been a 3-2 vote, we might have a little bit more of an argument. But with that close of a vote, obviously 2 people on planning and zoning felt like this was a good decision to make. And so I think that's why we have this extra set of eyes to take a look at it. And in my opinion, you know, we have to look at each one individually, and I'm certainly in support of helping these guys.
What kind of conditions they put on this again?
Well, they didn't, because it didn't pass.
Did they talk about
They did talk about some conditions. One was a maintenance agreement, so that the party had to get onto the other side, because you'd only be 1 foot on the. That was one discussion. And one was make sure that the drainage is routed to the alley. That was another one. And
Firewall.
And a firewall. Well, that's actually going to be required by building code, because as soon as she crosses the 3-foot threshold, the building code kicks in. And so there would be a firewall. Did I miss something? I think those are the 3.
Those are the 3. Our plans have already been updated to address the firewall. The drainage isn't an issue. We're planning that anyways, and our neighbors are fine with the maintenance agreement.
Right. The reason for a maintenance agreement, which years and years ago, I remember when we talked about that, was because the 2 neighbors may not be the same neighbors at some point, and that there's a document that is recorded that, and so if one transfers, that there's a understanding.
To allow you access.
To allow access.
And I'm not
you're only a
opposed to
foot.
that.
So those were just some things that were brought up at the Planning Commission as possible.
And Bob and I have had discussions at length about the definition of hardship. And in my opinion, this is one of them. So we can talk about that all day. But I would like to move approval of this variance with the conditions, with the 3 conditions that were recommended.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Charts.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion. 1 nay.
Just the one? Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep. Motion carries.
Thank you.
There you go. Item 15, reconvene as City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council to reconvene in regular session. Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. McCardle. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 16, action on resolution R 2018-41, levying Business Improvement District Number 3 special assessments for 2018-2019.
I don't think I've got much to say about it. This is kind of the last step in getting bid 3 up and running, is to put the first round of special assessments in place.
Just curious, what's the total assessment amount? I didn't add them up.
No, neither did I.
I think it was like 48,000
okay.
a year.
That's what
annually.
We were in the above the 45,000 range is all I remember. Okay.
I'll have it here.
I had it at 1 point.
43,835.47.
Move to approve resolution 2018-41.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anyone in the audience wish to address this? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 17, action on resolution number R 2018-42, plat of Lot 1, a subdivision of previously platted Lot 2 of Maui Farm, second edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Now, in the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission did review this plat, and they did recommend approval. And I believe just a meeting or two ago that you approved another one on the other side. And as you can tell, these are where all those storage units are, right off of Maui Drive. Just to bring that back up to, just another one of those, just to bring us back up to why it's there is because there was no utilities back in there and then against the railroad tracks, and they're trying to get some of the other types of vehicles off the side, off the lakefront. So.
Approve resolution 2018-42.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 18, action on resolution number R 2018-43, a plat of Lot 4B, Lot 4C, and Lot 4D, a subdivision of Lot 4 of Cabela's First Edition, located in the south half of Section 27, Township 103 North, Range 60 West, to the City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota.
Okay, if I could direct you, this was, I had to kind of get the map because it's wide, and that's the way they submitted it. But towards the left is north, and so that's where the subdivisions are. Where you see that, okay, there you go, thank you. Where you can kind of see where Cabela's is on Lot 4. The line that's on the left-hand side is Vera's property, and Culver's is on Lot 3A there, so just to kind of get your bearings straight. So what they're doing is they're subdividing these into some smaller parcels for potentially some future development. And then at the Planning Commission meeting, we did discuss where the possible accesses are. And it looks like there's some mutual accesses possible on 4D and 4B. And then 4C is the one that might be a little bit, we might have to have a discussion once we know exactly what they're going to be putting there. So
that would be discussed with the Public Works.
Right, right. And so we basically put it in, you probably saw in the minutes that the city reserves the right to control the access off of that, because we're going to, but that's kind of hard to tell until we know what what kind of businesses or uses are going to go there. So
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 19, approval of resolution number R 2018-45, providing a surcharge for improvements to the City of Mitchell drinking water system for payment of a borrower bond and yearly review of the surcharge.
Members of the council, in preparation for application being made for our Sanborn project for SRF financing, it was brought to our attention by the Department of Revenue that our existing water fees were supposed to have had a surcharge implemented in 2009 as a result of an application the city made at that time for BY Water. We were still designating those funds every year that came in and obligating it towards the debt service, but the city at that time never went through the motions of adopting the surcharge formally. So the Department of Revenue and Todd Meyer, Henry, and Michelle and I, through contacts through those individuals, Todd has drafted this resolution that will amend our existing water rates to include that designated surcharge, which was required by the existing debt obligation from 2009. It is not changing the cost that people pay for water. It's just changing the way we allocate the funds received from the water.
So oops, let's get it right.
Yep, basically.
Okay. Move approval.
I'll second it. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Any discussion? All those in favor, anybody from the audience want to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 20, annual report and recommendation to the City Council from the Lake Committee.
Good evening. I'm Joe Kippis with the Lake Mitchell Advisory Committee. I guess we've reached a point where we think that we're ready to say we have what we believe is a solution or a correction to deal with the blue-green algae problem we have in the lake. As stated, Lake Mitchell has a serious blue-green algae problem. Blue-green algae feeds on the high levels of phosphorus that we have in Lake Mitchell, and we have two sources of phosphorus for our lake. One is the soft sediment that's in the lake and has accumulated over 90 years of retention, represents about 47% of the phosphorus in the lake. And then the second one is the Firesteel watershed runoff, which is the source water for our lake, but that represents about 53% of the phosphorus that's in our lake. So it's been our conclusion that we need a solution that addresses both of those phosphorus sources, and so our first one listed is to implement a lake solution using mechanical dredging to remove the soft sediments in the lake. This is one that I guess has been discussed a number of times, so I don't have a lot of detail in presentation, but if you recall, it's the one where we would have to use some mechanism to draw the lake down, expose the soft sediments in the lake and remove them mechanically to a location where they can be properly disposed of. And that would be the mechanical dredging to remove it. The other, there's a number of, there are so many things involved with the dredging, but basically that's what it is, lowering the water level, removing the soft sediment. And then the other solution that we're recommending is we're recommending to implement a near lake solution using a water retention system to slow the Firesteel runoff coming into the lake, allow the treatment of that water that does come into the lake. So basically we would be considering retaining water in an area of about 1,000 acres above the lake. We could use that slow down to allow water to come into the lake slowly, and as it does, we can treat it with alum if we need, with an alum injection system at that point. So that 1,000 acres doesn't necessarily mean one retention pond. It could be 3, it could be 5, but it has to have a certain amount of square footage to accomplish what we needed to do. So, and that system would also be using wetlands management to help reduce some of the nutrient levels that was coming through. So ours, I guess, is to say, please consider these two retentions. The other item that we have listed is a watershed improvement, and this would be money to identify hot spots in our watershed, and then help pay for the sampling and the processing of those areas. So I guess if we turn to the next page, we get into our costs. Our lake solution, in-lake solution, which is the dredging cost, is $11,245,280. This includes the drain down mechanism for the lake, the gate that would be at the spillway, and actually that not only performs as that functions, but it also allows you to do some lake level management each year if you choose to lower water levels to protect infrastructure through the winter from ice. That's not an uncommon thing for reservoirs to do, lakes to do. The one thing that the $11,245,000 is, that's about $4 million higher than the first technical memorandum that came through. If you remember, that was 7.2. Then we asked the engineering company to go back in, study, get a more accurate number of soft sediments, and when it comes back, it's a substantial amount more soft sediment than what was originally forecasted, so that's why that price is up much higher. The near lake solution is $8,489,220. That is the number used from the first technical memorandum, and I guess I'm thinking that also includes the alum management system, and then the watershed locating hotspots and sampling and paying for the processing of the samples is $76,000. So the total project cost is $19,810,600, or $19,810,693. So I guess so you know, the reason we feel we have to present both of these is if we present one, I don't believe you're going to see the result that you want to see. If the ultimate test for the lake is the visual, when you drive by, you don't see it, you don't smell the green. If that's the ultimate test, then you're going to have to do both of these to achieve that. If you do one, you're going to lower phosphorus numbers, but you're still going to have enough phosphorus to support healthy algae blooms. And so, and actually, this isn't a new discovery. This was discussed in the first technical memorandum that we would need to do both the in-lake and the near-lake to achieve our desired targets. So I guess that's why we felt if we're going to propose this, we better propose both of them, both the in-lake and the near-lake.
I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, I wanted to ask about the grants. It says potentially 60% of that would be grant funded, which that makes a really, really big difference. So in past experience with other communities that have done this, have they gotten that 60% grant funding?
Yeah, and the 60% is a number that the engineering company provided to us, saying, I think they use a number saying 40 to 60, but so 60% would be probably, if things go really well, The other part of this is right now we're not seeing any grant money for the dredging. And so that in-lake solution, there's not a lot of help that way, at least none that we have that we can just say, we'll apply for these grants and it'll cover part of that cost. I know, I believe DENR, they could help with like near-lake solutions, but that in-lake solution, I don't think, as far as grants go, they do have low interest money to borrow, which is, that's important, but it's not grant money.
So basically everything out of the in-lake that would go into the lake would come out of our pocket, right?
But right now, that 11,000, we don't have other money to help us with that.
11 million.
Excuse me, 11 million.
Yeah, there's no grants, okay.
There are possibilities of grants, although you don't know to what extent for sure, for watershed.
The one thing that I think before we can get grants for anything, we have to be able to demonstrate that we've done our work. We have to have engineering work done, which I think, that'll be reflected in what's being asked for in the budget for 2019. But I don't know that you can effectively go pursue grants if you don't have that work done. So it's, I guess we're at a point now where, we've been asked to do this, and this is kind of what we come up with. There's no silver bullet that is going to fix this for us. If we want to fix it, we're going to have to dig in and do it the hard way, I think.
Well, the next step is basically get some bids to get this project rolling, or?
Well, I think the
design and
do the design work, and then we have to start finding out how do you finance this. I think that's going to be the next step.
Joe, I've got a couple questions. One, they're both in-lake and near-lake solution. The near-lake solution concept, and you mentioned 1,000 acres, and I know it had been discussed you'd want the retention ponds, if I'll call them that, and you said there could be multiple because 1,000 acres is 1.5 times the current lake size.
Yeah, that's right.
Discussion that you want them wide and shallow so that you can get in and clean them out. How far away could one of them be? I mean, 10 miles, 20 miles upstream? Is any of that discussion and thought? I mean, a series of 4 of them with one fairly near, but I mean, you don't want it 20 feet deep.
No, and in their TM they discuss that. You know, they for the greatest benefit, having it close to the lake is best. Because in between there and here, you will also pick up contaminants and nutrients, whatever. So, but it sounded, at least my understanding was, you know, you can scatter these away, which I think you're going to have to if it's 1,000 acres. You know, a section of ground is 640. Well, you're not going to be able to do a whole set. You're going to get what's along the creek. So maybe you get 200 acres out of a mile. You know, I don't know. I guess just guessing. So it's going to be
hard to be determined.
Yeah.
A lot of that would shake out.
Okay. The next question I have and deals with, did you look at any in-lake continuous sampling methods that are automatically downloaded database-wise that could be displayed on our city website?
Yeah, I think we're
look at that. Is that part of the watershed money, or is there
We visited with James River Water Development District, and they do some sampling, and I was asking them, and for some of the things that they're watching, nitrates, I think they can get some auto samplers that give you almost a live result. For phosphorus, they don't have that, and you know, but they have a lot of interest in what we're doing, and so you know they may be helpful if we're trying to do some other sampling. I think that's a group that would be potentially a good source to help us fund that. You know, they're keenly interested in what we're doing because they're doing the same thing
on the river and on
the Firestill also.
Okay.
But you know, we're doing it at a much greater frequency.
But it's still grab sample and and lab analysis for phosphorus.
I think right now, I think our parks guys are going out once a week, and they're physically pulling a sample, sending it to a lab, and having it processed. And you know, it's got to be a certified lab. I think that's the other thing, that if you're going to apply for grant money, your data
but
has
auto samplers calibrated, et cetera, through a certified, I mean, it's done for air quality, it's done for other water things. I haven't looked into whether phosphorus samples are available or not.
The only people that I've talked to concerning that is the James River Water Development District, and they're the guys that were doing it, and they didn't know of one, and they didn't think it was available. Now, that doesn't mean it's not. I mean, there's a lot of other places in the country right now suffering with what we're dealing with, you know, so maybe there's, with that might come some new ideas and how to sample. And
Joe, in the 1,000-acre acquisition, is that part of the 8.5 million?
Yes.
So that acquisition of that land is in that number.
I think $37.50 an acre was the number used. Whether that's
the pasture or whatever.
Yeah, you know, for typically the ground involved with that impoundment would be probably pasture or probably not row crop.
Joe, what's the rationale behind doing the in-lake first versus the near-lake? I do get a lot of questions of, okay, we take care of the phosphorus that's in the lake, but it still continues to come down, and when you're going to be able to afford to do phase 2, what's the rationale behind doing that one versus flip-flopping?
Well, I think, you know, it was the first one we pursued because it was actually something that the city had some control over, and we could do that. And while we're doing that, then we would be exploring how do we procure some ground for this 1,000-acre impoundment that we need. You know, that was the rationale. And quite honestly, if all resources are available, I think our preference would be do the near lake first, and then do the in lake. But since there isn't one that I believe offers a great advantage over the other one, if it worked out that the near lake would happen first, I think we would do it because there isn't a huge advantage to doing one. If you do one and you don't do the other, I think I just think you're going to be so disappointed that.
If you take the phosphorus out, then the sediment in the bottom of the lake is just going to leach phosphorus back into it and give us our high levels. If you take the sediment out, we still got 53% of the problem cutting into the lake and still have high phosphorus levels in it. So I think that's why
I have several members of the Lake Committee here. Does anybody else have something they'd like to add? Or are we forgetting anything that is really important?
Slides I can go over too.
Yeah, if you would, Nate. Do you have other questions, I guess? All right, thank you.
This strategy, as you said, all three are important. So we want to make sure we're also not ignoring the watershed as well. Those are important to encourage those programs with James River and also through the NRCS programs. So it's all three that we need to really clean up Lake Mitchell. The first two get us to our goal, and that's what we set out to do. The watershed would actually improve upon our goals. So that's why the watershed is still would be important to continue supporting. I don't think I need to go through anything else here. The grant, go ahead.
I do have one question. Just tell me what the $76,000 in the phase 3 in the watershed, how's that actually spent?
That's additional watershed testing to get more accurate. It's the same as what we did to find out how much sediment was in the lake. So we can get a little bit more accuracy on what's going on in the watershed and also to identify some hot spots.
Over a long period of time, or, I mean, it seems like you can test a lot of water for $76,000. Am I wrong?
It would be engineered, yeah, so I don't have a time frame on how long that would be. I did not ask that question, Susan. I'm sorry.
once you do all this, you're still going to have, until the wetlands starts taking out the phosphorus you needed to, you're still going to have some coverage.
And then the grants, the 60%, I could answer that too as well. That's their average on what they get for watershed work. So you could get 100% for a specific project if you can find a grant for it, but on average it'd be 60%. So these are just averages, but
so just 76,000 ongoing each year, maybe?
No, this would just be a one-time study. I don't know, however, how long of a period of time. We could probably extend that based on the fact that we're doing other work anyway, so we have time to wait for additional data to come in, but it is a one-time fee. And then oh, no, I'm sorry about that. That's just a one-time fee.
John, maybe you were looking down here at the long-term investment.
No, ongoing.
Oh,
it's just ongoing work. There wasn't a time frame because that watershed work would continue for as long as Lake Mitchell's there.
One more question, if I may. You talked about the cost of the first phase going from 7 to 11, roughly $1 million, based on further study of the soft sediment. What if you get in there and you say, well, we were wrong, it's now worse than we thought, we have to take out more? I mean, we thought it was 7 million, now we think it's going to be 11 million. Once you get into it, could it be?
I'll answer for the Lake Committee, and they can let me know, but I think we are very confident, but I'll go ahead and let Joe answer.
it's possible. And with that, there's a $1.7 million contingency built into the cost of the in-lake to cover some of that. But the work that they did, I think they came back, if anything, at least the indication to me was they came back strong on what they found. And if they have maps of the lake and how they mapped it, and it seemed to be pretty complete. I mean, they captured a lot of data that told them some pretty specific. They went from 500,000 cubic yards to 2 million, and then I believe that's correct. And but the 2 million is wet. So if you allow the water to get out of that, I forget the term they use, but then it's down to about 1 million. But it's still twice as much as what was originally estimated. So.
The next slide, Stephanie. The green boxes was what was laid out in the agenda on what the Lake Committee felt needed to do to get started on the project. If you're going to engineer for all three, like I mentioned, that was just under $2 million to do the engineering, to identify the hot spots, pursue grants. And you'd want to pursue grants for some of the engineering, I believe, as well, if those are available. And then you can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you do that, I did put the grant totals at the bottom. The top one is the one that is the safe bet, the $19.8 million. And if we can get those grants and get some grants, we would be able to cap that out probably at $4 million and get this down to closer to $16 million. Next slide. If you look at our phosphorus content, in 2012, we hit almost 900 parts per billion. And in 2017, we hit 1,060. And I just got the results today. We're actually at 1,370 now, parts per billion. And our goal in the near lake and in lake is to get us down to that 80 parts per billion. And that you don't always get there without some alum treatments, but you get pretty close. The blue line, the dark blue line, is the near lake and in lake. If you do them both, that's where we should be. And then the light blue line is the goal. And so we have a steady increase. You can go to the next slide, Stephanie. And this is the average phosphorus levels over through 2030. And you can see it actually shows going down in 2018, but we know that we've increased. So that chart is on an upward incline on phosphorus. That's average, yep. Yep.
Since we don't sample in January, February, March, April, May, June.
Yep, just in the summer. We know it's pretty low, I think, in the winter, but they have some history, but I'm not sure.
Can I digress for just a minute?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to our budget discussion earlier, Stephanie. I'm looking at you. Okay. So we have $250,000 set aside for, and I'm looking at the engineering costs. I'm on a couple of pages back, yeah. And we have the mechanical, the drawdown, and the mechanical dredge. Is that right? Am I right that we have $125,000 for each of those? Obviously, the drawdown, it looks like that's $100,000. We maybe have a little more than we need, and can you talk me through that just a little bit?
This this is the first time I've seen it.
This is the first time you've seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
The drawdown was the $100,000. The $25,000 that Mr. Rice was talking about during budget hearings was to engineer a spoil location to put the sediment when we're done. That would $25,000 would cover either mechanical or hydraulic if something changed.
The dump site.
Yes, yeah. So 100. 25 would do the engineering for the spoil.
125.
That might be an error on our part based on discussion. What's the?
I'm sorry. I'm still confused. Then okay, yeah.
250 total.
Got it.
125 for the drawdown design and 125 for the spoil site design.
Which was just a round number that we put in there, not based on an estimate. So it's
Right.
possible that's varying.
Yeah.
But that's the total amount that you have.
So I don't know that we have the other 125 allocated right now.
You know what, I got my answer, so that's what I needed to know. Thanks.
The bottom line is to do anything beyond that $250,000, you have to cut water infrastructure projects because you don't have the cash to do it. Without financing identified.
Right. Okay.
That's really all I have myself, and I don't know if the Lake Committee has anything else.
Any other questions?
Mike or
Nate?
What's that?
Oh, okay. All right.
My name is Mike Valley. I'll just pass out. At 4 o'clock, I was looking at this, and I just said, you know, I'm going to go out and take some pictures. I'm just going to go up to the public beach and take a picture. And then I'm going to go down to Camp Arroyo, and then I'm going to go down to Sandy Beach. The only place I found somebody was on Sandy Beach. Now, this person was walking down the side of the beach, and I pulled up and I asked her, I says, so are you going swimming? Oh, no, she says, it looks like pea soup. I said, so you live here? No, she says, I'm from Nebraska, but I'm looking up here for a job. I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Well, I said, good luck. And I moved on. I didn't want to get into a discussion, but I found it interesting that here was a person out looking at our community and walking there and looking out at the beach. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to just, and the last picture on there is a picture of a sunset. And it's a very beautiful sunset. I try and go out every night and just take a quick picture of the sunset. And we do have a beautiful asset, and that's why the Lake Committee, I think we all decided that if you're going to do it, you have to do both, because you got half the problem in the lake, half the problem coming down. And if you fix one and not the other, I don't know that I couldn't be in favor of that. That just to dredge it and not to put in the ponds. And I got worried that everyone would say, well, we've done enough now. And I don't want to go down that route. I think if we're going to do it, we have to do it right. And can I guarantee you that this is the cheapest way we can do this and get it all done? That in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, somebody may come up with some way to fix it? You can't guarantee that. But from what we have looked at and what we have gone through, everything from aeration to putting stuff in, and I mean, this is about where we're at. I mean, and everybody's, the chair said it well. He says, there's a lot of people that got this algae problem. There's a lot of lakes. And we have one advantage that like Lake Erie doesn't have. They can't drain and dredge theirs. That's too big a project. So we do have that as an option to work with. And be glad to take any questions you all have. But the committee has worked hard on this, and I've only been on there less than a year. And there's just a lot of information to digest when you come in like this to it. But they've done a very good job, and I think we've, when we talk to other people that have same problems, they're kind of watching to see how we're going to try and fix it. So thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Item 21, request to amend construction contract for project 2016-11 to allow for early release of a portion of the retainer for the Indoor Aquatic Center construction project. Pitts?
Good evening. My name is Mark Pitts. I'm the CEO of Pitts Corporation. With me, passing around the information you'll see shortly is Keith Reiners, who's a project manager on the Mitchell Aquatic Center. Very passionate guy about his work and very much lived the process of the build, wanting to see a great asset built in the community of Mitchell. And on that note, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the project. As the low bidder, we're proud to come in with a team of local contractors, regional contractors, and really build a quality project in a timely manner, on time. It's neat to be able to say as a community member, as a business owner, as a citizen of Mitchell, that we had the ability to build that project that generations to come are going to appreciate. So thank you. With that, today we are here a little bit different than what the agenda says, and that's a request to amend the construction agreement. We're actually here for you to review and hopefully approve a pay application request, essentially for the retainage or a portion of the retainage on the project. What is still being withheld by the city is about 700 and, or excuse me, yeah, 700 and, I jumped to my notes here, excuse me. 762,000.
Add the two together, 762,000.
Yeah, 762,000. We're requesting a release of 720,000 at this point in time, and that would leave the city with a balance of $42,468.37. Why I'm saying it's a request for a pay application is from everything that we can see in our contract documents, and as you go past the first group of papers that we handed out to you, it's a reference from our contract with you, the city, owner and general contractor agreement, and this is from 5.1.7. And specifically in point 1, it refers to, or it states, progress payment amount determined in accordance with section 5.1.6 shall be further modified under the following circumstances. And it references under point 1, section 9.8.5 of AI document A201-207. That's the general conditions. That is basically, that's the other paperwork that you have behind that first section. But that states that this A201-207 requires release of applicable retainage upon substantial completion of the work with consent of surety, if any. We hold the bond on this project. The city doesn't hold the bond, performance and payment bond, not necessarily financing. So when you reference then that 9.8 of the general conditions, you will then go to page 28 of the contract.
Hold it. Go to page 26 first.
Yep.
Read what that 9.3.4 says.
Absolutely. So the 9.3.4, this was part of the modified portion of the general conditions of our contract with the client. The contractor shall reduce the amount due for each application and certificate for payment by 10% to be retained by the owner until substantial completion. So substantial completion
Keep going.
has occurred. The application for payment following substantial completion will retain 2 times the value of incomplete work as determined.
So we're at punch list item here. Our
Right.
Punch list, right?
Correct.
Punch list complete.
Yes.
Have you requested final inspection?
We have not required final inspection.
So it's not complete by the contract. You have to request that final inspection.
But it doesn't.
But the substantial completion form was signed on what?
Right. It doesn't
June
actually
8th.
state
Read
that
the section.
It
says you get it back at substantial completion, but 2 times your punch list will be retained.
Right. And
until you're done.
When we look at the value of that punch list, it doesn't equal 720,000. So I guess we're open to what the city is willing to. If I may, I'd like to just
go ahead.
continue here. We've got a few more points to hit here. Our determination of what that punch list was not worth the 720,000. I would like to reiterate a point of that, and that is of that 762,000, excuse me, 600,000 of that is subcontractor work.
That doesn't matter. They're working under you,
I understand
which means
that.
you're responsible for them.
Bringing up the point.
Okay. Well, the point is you signed a contract with the city,
right,
that says you're going to follow this, and now you're requesting we change that.
Well, and I think we are. The city is actually not following it.
I would disagree with you.
Okay, and we can certainly
but
agree to disagree.
Make the rest of your points,
yeah.
please.
So then when you go to 9.8 of the general conditions, it also reiterates substantial completion is the stage in the progress of work when work or designated portion thereof is sufficiently complete in accordance with the contract documents so that the owner can comply or utilize the work for its intended use.
Which we've done.
Which we've done, yeah. Then going to item 9.85, which is the specific reference from the original contract documents of 5.1.7, substantial completion is the stage in the progress of work when the work or designated portion thereof is sufficiently complete in, oh, excuse me, I'm rereading the same one, I'm sorry. 9.8.5, the certificate of substantial completion shall be submitted to the owner and contractor for their written acceptance or responsibilities assigned to them in such certificate. Upon such acceptance and consent of surety, if any, the owner shall make payment of retainage applying to such work or designation portion thereof. Such payment shall be adjusted for work that is incomplete or not in accordance with the requirements of contract documents.
So the punch list would be work that's incomplete, correct?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yep.
So we're withholding that.
We agree on that, yeah.
Which is perfectly allowed.
Yeah. But we would.
Why haven't you finished the punch list?
We have finished the punch list. We just haven't requested the approval to have it come in.
So you haven't had it inspected yet.
Correct.
All you have to do is request the architect inspect it.
And we have requested that.
When did you do that?
We've got the items
Friday.
done as far as the construction.
Has it been requested to inspect it?
We have the items done for the
Has
construction.
it been?
No, not yet.
Okay,
But
then it's not complete. You have not completed it. Part of it is you call and ask for a reinspection. You haven't done that.
We've requested them to come back as of Friday.
Well, now hold it. You're saying you've requested them. He's saying you haven't requested it yet.
Some of the stuff in the punch list is O&M manuals, which is just paperwork per se to close.
But it's required by the contract.
We've got a lot of them submitted on to the architect for their review.
All right.
And then there's some training that's outstanding too.
There was 2 items left as of last week Wednesday, and that's what I was trying to make it to this meeting. Was the slide rail, which was fixed Friday, and some of the landscaping was done Friday.
What about the door to the boiler room? That's not sealed. Water came in over the weekend during the rain. You can see that. You can say daylight under it. Now, do we have the punch list here?
Was that item on the punch list?
We have double seals on it. When you have a door that doesn't have a mullion, majority of them leak. In a wind-driven rain out of the north.
You can see daylight underneath this door.
It's just a little adjustment to the seal that we.
Well, make the adjustment. It was on the punch list. The bottom line is you're not finished.
But the bottom line is we have to equate.
And your contract says you don't get paid until you're finished.
The contract states that we get paid the retainage that's due minus whatever the cost of unfinished items are.
Finish the items, call the architect, ask for a reinspection, and you'll get your retainage.
But that's not what the contract says.
That is what the contract says.
Our legal team would disagree with that. And we can still put a public lien on this project, which we would hate to do. Trust me, that is the last thing I want to do.
Finish the work and you'll get paid. It's that simple.
But that's not the contract.
That is the contract, Mark.
Well, I'm sorry. We'll continue to finish the items.
You got probably 2 days worth of work to get them done. That's all you got to do. Get it done. Come in, request the architect inspect it. You get your money.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you're even in here having this discussion.
I don't
think we have 700,000 worth of
Apparently, well, Mr. Architect, could you discuss the punch list items with us and the value of those punch list items, please? Please state your name.
And could you tell us where you got the pricing information for the value of those?
I'm Robin Miller. I'm the architect for the project with MSH Architects. To give you a little bit of history, maybe back in April or May, we were discussing a 10% retainage at the time, and we offered a reduction in retainage in exchange for some settlement on some weld issues, and that was not accepted. And that was on just a discussion we had with the city and the contractor. Back in June, we offered to extend the contract all the way up to the date of the substantial completion, and that was not accepted. So the contracted date of substantial was 6/1. The date we actually did it was 6/7. The boilers were incomplete. They promised they were going to be done by 6/12, and they weren't. They did get done, and the pool got heat, and that was part of to meet substantial. So we sort of just accepted something that wasn't done. We did the final. It was scheduled to be on 6/15. We did it on 6/25. The boilers, I don't remember when they got activated, but they were in time for the open house on the 3rd of July. But there were some items when we accepted with some promises that they would be done, just weren't. So We were going by a 10% retainage, and that's my error because you're right, it's 2 times the value is that term that's in there. So that was still in the contract as well, so you got both sets of terms. When we did the substantial completion, it's a 50-page item that Stephanie was scrolling. That includes photographs of areas, so the photographs take up some space, but it's very large, extensive. Quite a bit of a project closeout is paperwork. And we've been just holding for the paperwork. Well, I shouldn't say paperwork. There's just this, before I came up here, I did a quick calculation. I came up with, Steve, our project manager, and I came up with 33 items on the list. It can depend on how you list it. I could probably come up with quite a bit more, but is O&M manuals one item, or does that include every subcontractor that's under that item? Or is manuals, which are O&M manuals plus warranties, is that one item? Or is paperwork one item?
Can you explain what constitutes the O&M manuals?
Stephanie, could you go to the, we provide, it's towards the beginning of the architectural section, so it's page 1 or 2 or 3. O&M operations and maintenance manuals. It's catalog information on basically every piece of product that's in the job site. They need to provide it. It's been being submitted in sections. Some of them we've rejected. Some we got. I talked to Steve today. He said that there's another one he might have to send back. I don't have the details on all of them and why, but it's not all put together. You should, when you're done, get 2 hard copies and 1 electronic copy. So that's being worked on.
That's how the people who run the facility know what they need to do for maintenance, and if something breaks, how they fix it. Pieces they might need to order for various parts and things if they were to have a problem with them.
See where it says so very top one. See the second one now. Submit warranties and bonds manual. Submit schedule of maintenance materials. Where does it say more manuals? Architectural owners and maintenance manual. We gave a copy of the section of the spec to follow. As-built drawings, I think, are coming in. I'm not sure they're complete.
Yep. You guys.
Okay.
Steve said he was going to review today.
So things we get, we haven't had a chance to review yet. So my comment has been since 7/11 when we did that walkthrough, I've been saying when it's done, let me know. So I haven't been keeping up line item by line item because there's a lot of line items. It's been coming in. I've been waiting for more of a completion. Where did I get the value? I was using 10%. But if I were to, I look back and it's the architect's estimate of what it would take to have somebody else come and fix a particular line item. So how do I do that? It wouldn't be probably the contractor that has a job, but it would be trying to find a third party that would come in now and repair a tear in the roof. And what is that, $500? Where they could maybe do it for $30, I don't know, $30. So how I come up with a number is different than what a contractor might think that repair is. So I just did a quick one today. Times 2 would be about $668,000 from that old estimate. Now,
okay, so
essentially we're saying,
could
it get done?
$660. If we
sure.
follow the contract at
Sure.
2 times the remaining value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you followed that 2 times.
We're good with that.
Well, the I came up with 668,600 instead of the 770 that's there right now.
We would retain that and give them the rest, which would be per the
So we'd make a pay down. And as soon as we get notification, we'll come up and do it again. There's a couple items that are pending on there that are a little bit, we got to get them resolved somehow. The weld issue is still sitting out there, as is additional return trips for us, because we get caught a lot of times in a lot of returns. So we have 1 substantial and 1 final. So we've done a final. So to come back and do more, and we'll get our engineers to do their part. It'll take us a little bit of time to coordinate to get everybody here, but we'll get it done as soon as we get the list. And if it's all done, we can sign off.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, bet.
Just a note on that, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Mayor, with the 2 times the value of what's outstanding from the punch list. I want you to know, if you come to that 660,000, we don't have near that much that hasn't been completed. We just haven't had it certified yet, and we will do that. So you know,
And
maybe
part
if we
of
have
that-
$10,000 remaining, but again, we'll get that done and take care of that. But I guess we're open. We want to be working with the city as far as what we see here, but just in our interpretation of that 2 times the value of it, we just couldn't see that we wouldn't at least have some retainage released. So,
Mark, how long do you think it will take you to finish what needs to be done, including
The construction items, in our opinion, are done. We're down to the paperwork. We're down to the O&Ms that we've submitted. They've come back rejected because I might be missing one piece of paper or two pieces of paper. So now we've resubmitted some of them, and there's 13 of them that are waiting for the architect to approve.
So you do a final walkthrough, or?
We
what
added.
do you do? So when is your final walkthrough then?
Can I interject? Well,
That would be the final payment, correct?
but I would assume the contract, what we've provided for places for the contractor to sign that they've completed the date and when. So when we get that all signed and done, that's verification that they've done a full walkthrough. It should be good when we come up here. But what we do find is maybe the threshold still isn't on the door yet, the sweeps and the thresholds, which is where it's coming in underneath, it looks like right now. Or having repaired, give you an idea, up on the roof an area by the condensing unit, they repaired the roof, the EIFS, in a different color. Or if you repair the roof and then you damage something next to it. So when we come and do a walkthrough, we'll do line by line of those items. Are they here? Are they done? Is everybody in agreement with that? And we look at the area that needed repair plus the area around it to see if there's anything now that's come up related to repairing the work. Because sometimes that happens. But we're assuming this is a good contractor. So we don't really have anything against the contractor. We just like to see it get done. And the paperwork in place, we can come and verify it, sign off. We'd love to do that.
We'd love you to do that too. I mean, that's all we're asking, get her done.
we're
Come and
getting
ask
there.
them.
And in the
So
meantime,
for the construction items, you would come and check them off, even though we're still waiting for some of the O&Ms to filter through? At least we can check off the construction items?
The way the contract's written, we're looking for a substantial completion that you're done. I'd defer to the city, I guess, if you want to change that. But I'm looking right now for we did a final because we thought it was done on the end of June. How many times should we come back?
We all know it wasn't done then because the rail was not in and the glass wasn't here. There was stuff that was ordered back in April that didn't show up until just, Friday. So we knew when you came it wasn't done.
So maybe not to belabor this too much, but on the boiler issue, we took the contractor's word for it, and it took a lot of grief to get that done. And you know, there are extenuating circumstances, I know, but it wasn't the day we signed and agreed on that, and we had the word that it would get done. And for us, I mean, I can come and do 7 more inspections, but they're all starting to cost money.
But that gets charged back to the contractor.
We charge those back to the owner because our contract's with you, and it's supposed to come out of the contractor.
So we have to go back.
So now you have to go back,
you.
and I don't want to have to put you in that position either. So I'm trying to get, if it were done, it'd be great. I'd come and we'd sign up.
I guess the bottom line is, in my opinion, we hired the architect to be our design professional and advise us, and he's advised us it's not done. And we've got, maybe there's a slight adjustment in the retainage.
what was the number you said again?
I came up with 668.
So it's a
668.6.
about $100,000. So we
Yep.
would certainly take that. I mean, I think.
And Mark, I don't think I got the answer. I know that you're talking about the O&M manuals that still have to fit, but standing here in front of me, how much longer will it take for you to finish what needs to be done?
Part of it is we're waiting on contractors to get us some of that information, so I can't tell you specifically what that will be. A lot of times, I'll get you a ballpark here. A lot of times, this is I guess standard to what we've seen is that O&Ms are done after final completion. Same thing with some of the training. Some of it happens during that substantial to final completion, but a lot of it, the final training gets done after final completion and is notated as such in the final completion form. So as far as an estimate?
We have very few submittals left to upload to Submittal Exchange, the site that uses them. It's the stuff that then comes back rejected that we have to then correct if we're missing a sheet, something, and then re-upload.
Post indicator valve that was put in incorrectly been corrected?
We asked Steve recently and Robin if we're able to put a 19-inch post indicator valve onto the building and not block the sidewalk, and I haven't got an answer back.
We can't do that. That would stick out beyond the ADA on the sidewalk, so we can't have a 19-inch valve. Okay. And that's
the one that we have, I believe, is
right
code. And
it's
Mary's,
not both FM and UL, which is required.
Right.
So it doesn't.
But it's lockable, is it?
It's got to meet FM and UL. If you don't do that, you don't meet it.
So to bring it up to date, I don't know if you saw this one. I saw just before I left, Donna had written they might be able to do some signage and some arrows. So it sounds like there's a possibility of a solution there, but none of us got a chance to study that.
Fine.
But that's part of closing out a project. I could also tell you, I think, at least about 10 days ago, we're still working on getting some O&M manuals for the Performing Arts Center, which completed, 18 months ago or more. So it's just closing projects out is a lot of work. It's part of that closeout, and it's why early on we advise you should retain a fairly good amount because it's an incentive to get a job done.
The other item is we have their bond if they don't finish the work.
Yeah.
And you know where we live.
Yeah, that too.
So, resolution, I guess, at all, or what's the thought? I mean,
in my opinion, if we're down to $668,000, we could reduce the retainage to that. But until the job's
it's 51,400.
Sorry.
The reduction would be 51,400 to reduce it from 720.
760.
Oh, we're at 762. There shows.
That's what I was billing for this month.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
Where is it? Where's your retainage showing on this sheet?
This would be the
334, 300 is from Mr.
Add the 720, the second to last line item, and the 442.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be right. You'd take the
roughly 90. Yeah.
762, 468.37 minus a 668.6 would be the amount due if you approve that.
We'll be generous. Call it 668.
Looks like 93,862.
What,
you
want these back? I guess.
Oh, because he added this and this. That's why.
Stephanie, do we need a motion or just?
Well, if you're going to authorize,
money, then?
It's just doing what the contract says. I don't think it takes any action.
it would, because it was not included in the claims that were already approved. So if you're going to approve a payment, the council has to authorize a payment because it wasn't included in the claims register. Yeah.
Is that yours?
I'm getting there.
So I'd go 668 even.
So the difference is 94.
What is it? Just say, look, how about you say you make a motion to retain $668,000?
There you go.
Save everybody getting out a calculator quickly.
93,868.37.
Is that acceptable to you guys?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Well, we haven't made a motion yet. Don't thank us yet.
Thanks for the idea. I guess.
They might not approve it.
I'll approve it.
All right. We have
Second.
Motion by Smith, second by Mr. McCardle. Mr. Barrington, do you have something? You thirded it? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Anything from the audience? Hearing none. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.